Gentlemen, thank you for coming on. The first question is actually the one that banners the headline for what we're discussing. I mean, it's about business partnership under pressure, and we all know how much pressure this business is under at the moment. What do you think, in general terms, can realistically be new commercial pillars and principles that could be applied? Do you want to start off, Francois?
The good thing about what we have seen over the past few weeks is that customers are back. They are spending in the shops, so the appetite to spend has not disappeared. What we are missing dearly is the volume of passengers. So we have customers, but not enough of them. But I think that this crisis has put us back all to basics. We have had a lot of discussions between landlords and I don't like this word, between airports in my case and concessionaires. So I would say between partners. I think we all went back to basics about what makes our business successful. And we had to have a lot of discussions about how do we get out of it? How do we work better together in terms of contractual arrangements to get the units reopened? Because we all want to get a business short term, long term, and we want to serve the customers. So I think the biggest pillar for growing again in the future is about partnership and collaboration and finding win-win partnerships. We, for sure, all interests are not aligned, but there's many ways of finding win-win partnerships if we fully understand the position of the other party.
Are you closer to achieving something that is meaningful and different from what's existed before in terms of your commercial partnership?
I think so, yeah. If you had asked me if I would have signed commercial agreements the way I've done it in the recent weeks, if you had asked me that 6 months ago, I would have told you, no, I don't think so. But as an airport, we always take the long-term view. Short-term is a blip. It's a massive blip in this case. What matters to me is to recover, to get back to my business plan. If we do it with different ways of working, this is the way it has to be. So we've done original deals, whether it's revenue share on some categories to de-risk the business plan for the partners. For some other partners, it has been about sharing the downsides. I mean, as an airport, we're quite good at sharing upsides. We never thought we would have to share downsides, but it's what we have to do in the short term to get back our partners on their 2 feet. Luckily, as airports, we're a bit more stable. I think we get it's difficult financially, but the lenders might have a better trust in our business model for the long run. Whereas I believe that the horizon of some business partners is much more short term, especially because they get contracts with us, whereas we get a freehold on our airports.
Martin, your thoughts?
Well, I think in any time before, but especially now, I think airports need to start focusing on their strengths. And I hear and read a lot about the digital game. And negatively pointed out, many airports are still taking a paint and brush to Instagram. And this is not the way to go. And honestly, I don't see a scenario where we could be competitive with Amazon's and the like. However, we have a massive strength. If we look back at history, we were probably with airports and airport retail one of the first platforms in the world. But somehow we have forgotten that strength. So I think we need to start focusing on the strength of that physical environment, select also partners who understand this physical game, but not per se only in having the best average ticket or sales. I think the game is going to be much more, can we engage people? Can we become a club for brands, for people to engage with, a platform from eyeballs to trials rather than from footfall to sales? If we look back before COVID, that model was also already under pressure. And I think we should not throw out what is working, but I think this is something that we should really add. And then we should also have room for different business models. Currently, our business models have become business constraints, especially with high MAGs. And I think any retailer will testify to that. And any airport eventually will as well. And we're kicking the can down the road, hoping for better times, hoping for a vaccine. But for the future, I don't see how we could, for every category and every facility, have contracts for 5 or 10 years in this model. Innovation, if you look at the whole platform of retail, is much faster. It's a different paced game. So I think we need to be much more resilient and speeding up our innovation process. I think those are key components of the future.
Adil, welcome. I'm sure you've got a comment to make on that.
Yeah, I do have. Thank you for getting me over, Peter. I think one of the most important things that hasn't been discussed yet is the rebalancing act between the stakeholders, because however we're going to move on, there's a lot of things that are still left to be discussed. And I do believe that if you look at today's world, who owns the data, who has data, who can interact on a platform and talk directly to the customer, I feel more that airports are kind of losing ground on the connectivity. Retailers or duty-free operators, unless they're heavily invested in digital communication platforms, online e-commerce, key opinion leaders. Within Europe, mostly, I see things going backwards. If you look on the brand side, the brands, they want to help the retailers. The brands, they want to invest more, and they see that there's opportunities that they can start to communicate earlier ahead of the journey with targeted promotions. And if then I look at the airlines, they have the richest data. We never work with OTAs. Why don't we work with OTAs? It is more a transaction model. It is maybe smaller revenue, but it is the sheer scale of people that actually want to interact. And I think what is missed here, before we talk about new business opportunities and new business models, because at the moment there's no real business model. We need to first sort the past. There's a lot of dues. There's a lot of unpaid bills. There's a lot of, I would say, inconsistencies in approaches on how to restart. And also, do we actually know what the consumers want today? And from the market research that we've seen is that they're not very much interested in shopping. And as you know, I've been traveling lately. For 20 days, I was on a trip where I have seen a very different thing as what I read, because I wasn't in the mood to shop. I was really focused on being safe, because I ended up in a country in the Netherlands where nobody wears a mask. They're a good right, but today we see that that has a massive impact on infections, on cases, but also in general in travel, because we all thought that we would be back by 2020, 21, 22, 23, and it doesn't look like, because everything goes down. And I think this will be the main denominator of how new business model will be carved. It has to be collaboration. It has to be more data-driven, but data in a more sophisticated, smarter, and leaner way, instead of just building those monolith data centers where it is just a data point and not an action point. The other point I want to raise is, having spoken to many airports, operators, retailers, airlines in the last couple of months, where CapEx is a forbidden word, that on its own will change the whole metrics of how we build something, how we build a business model. And this is something that needs serious consideration, because it is a heavy investment-based industry. And all of a sudden, everybody says we can't invest. So the question is, who will invest? What will we as travelers be benefiting from it? Or how much will we have to pay for it? Do I have to pay for standard sanitization protocols? Do I have to pay for standard customer experience. No, I shouldn't be paying for that. That should be part of it. So there is now this whole question on touchless travel, CapEx-less, all these things. How does this actually transform into a business model? And I think there's a lot of opportunities out there, never been trialed and tested in an airport. If you look in the world outside there, it's all there because we all have our Netflix subscriptions. Why not use Netflix subscriptions in an airport? Why not engage LinkedIn people or LinkedIn community on an airport? Why not build Indiegogo stores for people that are willing to buy products so long ahead, which is not maybe a subscription model, but there's a lot of subscription-based services that we use in our everyday life and are non-existent in airports. It is a new opportunity. I don't want to say it's going to fill up the gaps because we need, in general, to rethink what is relevant today in a world where people hardly want to invest. People want to spend, but have limited opportunities.
I mean, I get the feeling now that everyone is talking up agility, the ability to respond with speed. Arguably, we're having to do in 5 months what might have been planned in a period of 5 years. Some of the legacy management that we see at airports and retailers, frankly, are not up to it. Not up to affecting that change because they've been cocooned for so long. It's very difficult to manage this process when you've only been looking at 6% growth annually. It's that's been the safety valve. Now all bets are off. I think you're right that there is a degree of legitimacy about looking at the model. Certainly, looking at the length of the contracts that appear, but people want a degree of continuance. It's very difficult to shake the tree, and therefore there'd be nothing left on it. The model needs to be reworked. We won't discuss that because I think that people largely take that as a given. But it's interesting to hear your thoughts. I think also we have to.
If I might add to your comment, I think this discussion has much or too often has been approached as an either-or situation. I think these models could coexist. New models could coexist with old models. So we could add them on. Why not? There's still room for duty-free, plenty of. However, could we not add different models? Before, square footage or square meters were a huge constraint. Well, in the foreseeable years, unfortunately, probably this is not a constraint, which gives us now an opportunity to experiment. Yes, it's not the situation we want to be in, and currently for many organizations, it's perhaps not even the best timing. Airport organizations and their suppliers are cutting off limbs as we speak, and it's painful and dreadful to see. And that's the danger part of the situation we are in. But we should not forget that there's also going to be a prosperous future somewhere in that future. Airports have proven to be very resilient in the last years, and we will survive as an industry, and it's our choice on how.
The thing is that airports and retailers are hemorrhaging money at the moment. Nobody's mentioning the word capex because it's been thrown out for the moment. So what we're looking for right now, and the purpose of these sessions, is to actually offer viable new ideas that have an application now that don't involve huge amounts of capex, and that essentially that it's not about finessing what we have, but it's actually doing a bit more than that. And there needs to be a change of mindset amongst the airport community in particular about how much risk they're prepared to take, because all the while things like online purchasing is definitely cannibalizing duty free. Having said that, what we've seen from the research is that when people are flying, they're actually spending more per head than they were previously. Yep. And I know the levels are very, very low indeed, but the fact is that's nevertheless true. And that's got to be good seeds for the future. Yep. Good news. But they too, though, still want to see fundamental change in the overall offer. There's no question about that. The airports have to be faster in terms of reacting to changing customer needs and behaviors beyond just putting in all the right sanitization products.
Yeah.
Francois.
Fully agree with you. It's, I think it's a great period. We could do without it, but because where we are as an airport, and I can see it as well with shareholders, no one is thinking anymore that when you do a deal or when you look at a new situation or a new opportunity, it's an opportunity cost and you get something to lose, because we don't have any more business, so there's nothing to lose. There's everything to create from now. We get a blank sheet of paper. We need to go back fast on our feet. There's as much cost as we can remove from the business. But once we will all have done cost cutting, it's all about developing new sources of income. I've never seen as many good promotions in duty-free shops right now. So you can see very aggressive 3-4-2. I think we go back to where this industry was. People buy in duty-free because you get local products or exclusivities, and because it's a competitive pricing. So let's go back to it. And if we need to sacrifice a bit margins for retailers, a bit margins for airports, but we generate more volume, let's do it, because people buy duty-free because it's cheaper, or you get products you can't find on the high street. Whether they book it online or they buy it in the shop, I think it for sure things are changing. All of us have done things differently during a lockdown, and penetration of online has been higher. So I'm sure we can work in a good intelligence to pre-book, promote the online channel. And I agree, we get far too many square meters of retail short term. So maybe we can try new concept. Maybe we can take more risk and don't get rent in the very short term if it allows to try new concepts or new brands which will work afterwards. So I'm sure we can do far more. And when I look at food and beverage, we always have capacity issues at peaks. Now everyone is ordering food and beverage online, pre-booking the coffee before coming to the units. Isn't it a good way to build on what we've learned during lockdown and increase capacity with speed of service, for instance? So there's many things we've done during lockdown we would have never thought we would. And I think let's keep the good parts to improve customer service, to improve offer, to go back to the basics on pricing and offer, and try to generate more sales in the future.
But are you at all shackled by your institutional shareholders in terms of how much risk you're prepared to take?
Yes, for sure. But I get one example of a category which we of products where we thought everything was dead and we would not get any income tomorrow. So it depends if you look at what you used to have or what you have right now. Once you've moved from not looking at your existing business plan, which is wrong, and where you start from, which is more or less nothing, and you try to build back towards something which looks like a sustainable model, I think it's where you should be going. I don't think we should do silly deals which are committing the airport for the next 10 years and very low margins or very low sales. But everything is possible in the short term because there's no business at all.
It's good to hear about the art of the possible. We want to see some real examples of that. Can you give us any specifics?
We know, for instance, that in specialty shops, especially those ones in regional airports, it would be very difficult to get them reopened because we might not have enough passengers in the short term. I think it might be different in the big hubs, and I would expect that some of the brands are operating in the big hubs for visibility. It's not necessarily about bottom line. I think in the regional airports, we might have a few shops which will never reopen, which will be empty. We get the choice between trying to find a concept. So you could go to your local marketplace and find local retailers who might have a strong brand locally. I've never been in airports. If the fit out is already kind of done from the predecessor, you can keep the fit out. There's low capex, and you can get new brands, local brands, who might get access to airports. And then you try them, whether they work in airports or not. You get 2 or 3 years where anything is better than nothing.
Understood. I want to go back onto the price issue because I don't think I necessarily agree with you about how competitive pricing is on airports, because you see, 27-30% of punters now actually are looking at their mobile, checking prices all the time to see whether it's better at the point of arrival than the point of departure, or even domestically.
Yeah.
And that I kind of think that duty-free travel retail has lost its USP over the years in terms of pricing.
I agree, that's my point as well, but we've seen a lot of promotions during the restart period where you get very aggressive 3-4-2s, for instance, which I think are very attractive in terms of price. That's why maybe we see the spend being quite good short term. So how do we go back to the DNA of this industry, which was about which is about being very competitive on price? And does it mean that retailers need to accept they sacrifice a bit of margins to generate more volume? Does it mean that airports have to support on the rent side so that it's not one-sided? I think it's something we need to look at because I think it might be one of the things we need to do to generate more volumes in the short term and in the future. I think we've moved away from great prices. I totally agree.
I also actually agree with your earlier points where perhaps both airports and retailers need to understand that in the new situation, the new environment, they actually have to offer more and accept less. Martin?
Well, let me state a different approach on this one. Yesterday, or at least a couple of days ago, a Dutch bank brought out a news article in which it says that retail is one of the winners, if there are any winners, of this COVID pandemic so far. Obviously not airport retailers, but retail as a category. Certain categories are not, and certain channels are not. But
they're talking about grocery, they're right. But I'm not sure about
grocery, but if you would have a do-it-yourself business or an online clothing business or so forth and so on, there's many winners, sporting goods, etc.
For sure.
These are all products that we hardly sell at airports, or if any at all. And before, digital was a method to enhance the physical experience. And I think we could now safely say that it's almost become the other way around. And I've stated this before to some people, and they thought that I was drinking some very stiff drinks when I said, why don't we sell furniture in an airport? Or why don't we sell washing machines in an airport? And then people said, do you think that people are going to carry these things into an aircraft? And I said, of course not. We will take these points only as a point of sale or a point of experience. And then we can add a lot of other categories. And the truth is, airport retail has been more a follower than a leader when it comes to the whole retail category. We haven't been very much an innovator. And that's also because our cycles are too long. Innovation is about short cycles. If you talk to companies like Apple or Amazon, you say, well, we try to innovate our shopping environment every 5 to 10 years. I think they're going to have you checked into some sort of facility because that's not the culture they have. They say, well, we innovate our own website on a daily basis. Well, our shopping environments are beautiful, but are also very costly. And I think we have to introduce them as a podium for experiences, much more than anything else. And that can coexist very much with a profitable duty-free model. But in the Western Hemisphere and in developed airports, I don't think I'm sharing any secrets that the spend per passenger in the last 2 decades, 20 years, has been dropping every year. So we have been proving that the model has been able to entice less and less people on a daily basis. It's time to introduce something else.
Adil, any comment?
Definitely. Price, for many years has been on my radar. Price, I always see conversion behind it. Conversion has gone down for many, many years, for decades, in fact. We went from being super attractive to a brand that was called Texan Duty Free. We converted it in Texan Duty Free Lies. I know I always make bold statement about it. But that's how I feel it as a consumer who always bought everything at the airport, and today it doesn't buy anything. Our USP is dead. Price was our USP. In return, how did it happen? Greed killed experience. We had 50%, 60% margin in the 90s and 2000s, and I would talk about 70%. A lack of price governance. I think that airports can execute a certain price governance, and that is within the price policy, that is within their range policy, that is really looking for things that are relevant, not just cookie cutting assortments. Okay, I would like to see something on air purification systems. I would like to see something that adds value to my daily life. I would like to see something that is healthy, actually healthy. I could take a subscription model on my nutritions that are good for me. There are so many more things out there that I do believe that people like to pay for something as long as it is relevant, but people don't like to pay more in a duty-free store as you can buy in your Lidl, Aldi, or normal online retailer. I think at the end of the day, we killed a beautiful brand. We killed a brand that had so much. It was glamorous, it was glorious, it had price, it had luxury, it had literally everything one could wish for. We killed it by greed.
Francois, arguably travel retailers are full of self-admiration in terms of them thinking they're doing a good enough job. As you alluded to earlier, there's going to be, or we talked about earlier, there's going to be a fair bit of a white space available. That raises a number of issues. Firstly, what type of retail you want to bring in as a new entity, but also it raises the question about whether or not you want to more fully empower brands who want to deal direct with the airport rather than go through the retailer or, let's just say, the on-site advertising operator. What's your view on dealing direct with brands?
I'm open to any business model as far as the brand is delivering in that case. In the past, I've been approached by many, especially in catering, where you get a lot of brands who want to operate directly. But it ends up as a operational disaster because they don't necessarily understand the airport business model. I mean by that, it's you need to get the right offer. So if you operate in the high street, you might be strong on lunch and dinners. In airports, if you miss breakfast, you've missed 40% of your sales. You need to work round the clock. You need a supply chain, which is a bit slightly different than high street. So if a brand is cracking all the operational elements, I'm okay to work directly with them. But the beauty of working with companies which are specialized in travel retail is that usually they can operate more than one shop. So my job is around regional airports, and size matters because we don't have enough passengers. If you can get a partner which is operating a couple of shops, you might get economies of scales, which allows for stronger management because you get one store manager for 3 or 4 shops, for instance. So I think it will be a combination of both. And the brands who might want to go direct, they will get a good reason. And I don't think there's so many of them who have the potential to go direct. You need to be a very strong brand with a very strong offer. Which appeals to enough passengers or customers to deliver a strong business case, not only for the airport, but for themselves so that it's viable.
Adel?
For me, airports have always been experience podiums, whether it is aviation fascination, aviation geeks, runway fashion shows. A lot of things have happened, but we lost a bit the glory of travel. And I also do believe that the experience that we have lived was purely based on how luxurious could an airport get. We didn't really look at what was relevant to most of the people. Why not use art as a form of awareness to make people more in sync with what is happening? Okay, there is a company, for example, Curate for Change, a non-profit organization that builds beautiful art installations, work with hundreds of artists around the world to make people aware of what is happening. Is it fire bushes in California? Is it the melting ice? Is whatever it is, there's art installations that can remind us of our sustainability issue. Why not have a LinkedIn recruitment cafe? Why not? Zoom has grown exponentially. Why not have a Zoom lounge? Why not designated spaces that people are using anyway because they need to be on a Zoom? I've been spending most of my time on Zoom. Why is this not something that is then being integrated? I would love to see an environment where I can browse, I can see.
So you're basically arguing that existing retailers haven't really done a great job between them, and perhaps arguing nor of the airports in terms of providing new access.
Because the contract constraints of what you can do within your contract term and which category has never allowed this to happen. And we have gone to different airports. We've asked them, do you like an Indiegogo shop? 5% rent. No, 5% rent. So there's this imbalance of what people actually want to buy, to see, to browse, and what can we actually earn on it. And I think this is one of the issues that needs to be addressed, because I can imagine Adobe doing something incredible, because you know what, they power a lot of businesses. They know what data is, they know what they can do with data, but they also on recruiting people, because every person in normal day life, many of them have some connections to Adobe. So there's a lot of things that we could use airport space that are now coming available. Why not having a healthcare and well-being center where you check in, you check out? There's technologies out there that can bring this closer, because we all know when we travel like we've done, we don't go for checkup. No, let the checkup come to you. Let me burn my miles on that. Let's come with ideas that is more relevant to everyday traveler today as they've been in the past, but also can contribute to a healthier lifestyle, a healthier travel environment, where again we transform purpose, because purpose is being transformed for travel.
You make an interesting point when you touch upon, a couple of interesting points actually, and I think they intertwine. I think many of the airport retailers have been focused on understanding the airport game, perhaps even more than understanding the customer experience game, because it's a complicated place to do business, security, specialized logistics, so forth and so on. And what we have been working on with clients in the past years is, can we revisit that approach? So why not, as an airport, take more control, have a specialized company, for instance, run a centralized receiving and distribution center, which is also very helpful when we bounce back, hopefully in the near future, which is much more efficient, because then you will have one specialized party focusing on logistics rather than 10 or 120 people who should be focused on the customer experience, investing some of their money into a logistical system. But also it will give you economies of scale for local players. It will lower the threshold for new brands. It will make the capex lower for these organizations. So it will help innovation and shorter cycles. So I think we need to really look at our perhaps retailers' journey and see which elements should we want to be more in control of rather than just letting out space.
Martin, you haven't mentioned one thing which has got to be a consideration for airports now, about moving more closely into joint ventures with their retail partners. Are you up for that, Francois?
I do. I've already done it. I've tried joint ventures in car parking and business lounge management. It has been very successful. It has allowed the operator to consider developing sales to get the staff a bit more commercial. It has allowed the airport to look far more at cost management and be more reasonable. So you don't need to operate a lounge from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. if you don't get anyone in your airport. So we both looked in the same way at the business. So it can be successful. We've tried it in good times and bad times. It was successful. Now I've never tried it in categories which are more capital intensive, because you would have to share capex and stock. But I know some other airports have done it. They seem to be happy. They seem to be happy with the model. So I think there's something into it which gives more stability and long-term view for both partners.
Martin, do you think there should be more JVs around?
Well, honestly, it depends on the motivation and the objective of the JV. I've been involved in quite a number of JVs from both airport and retailer sides. And let's say there's two categories. The first category, I think, is currently the predominant one. And that is, let's see if we can have a little bit more of the retailer's profit and a little bit more of control on the relationship, which is an unbalanced marriage. And that's what it's focused on. I think in the future it would work if both parties would be really taking risks which are in line of their investment and their capabilities, and really start entrepreneurship together. I think the focus should be on that. Why are we in business together? Why are we helping each other move forward? And that asks for a whole different relationship than when we now talk about partnerships, is where we actually try to manage the contract.
Well, it's one way. It's one-way traffic. It's not a level playing field, arguably, right now.
No, it's not. And it has been like that for a while, and it has worked more or less in the sense that we, from an airport business, have a lot of nice returns and a pretty good ASQ scorings, etc. But it has been highly leveraged. Retailers want out of the contract right now, not because they want out of the business, but because they want out of the mags. They're willing to revisit the future, of course. But if airports saying, well, let's stick with the mag for the foreseeable future, and you don't have to pay it now, but we'll just add it to your debt. That's something that an airport retailer or a travel retailer can't keep on explaining. And I see a lot of post-its on various online channels where we all say we're in this together. And I think we have to be specific about what we're together with. And I think we are in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. And it's a hard message, but I think it's the truth. And from an airport point of view, from a landlord point of view, I think we're usually in control. Therefore, we need to start thinking, okay, what is this future that we're after? And it better be purpose-driven, whatever we come up with. Because if it's not, it's going to be even tougher to implement. We need to make sure that what we do is inspiring for the future, not only on the customer experience for the staff and the partnerships involved.
As a business, are you interested in adopting new ways of working with your partners, whether it's profit sharing or whatever, and variable fees, which are directly related to traffic levels?
I am, and we already do it. So first, I'm not a big fan of minimum guarantees. I've been on the other side. I was on the retail side before. I've been on the airport side. Having
so poacher turn gamekeeper now.
Yeah, no, but having a partner trading in minimum guarantees is usually a recipe for disaster, because it means that they get fixed costs. They will be focused on managing costs, not on developing sales. So usually when you focus on cost, not sales, it means that sales are gonna go down in the future. So it's not very healthy. I think the minimum guarantees are there to make sure that retailers are not overbidding in tenders, and in past tenders, I've never been shy to, if I thought that the retailers was bidding too high, to challenge why they were bidding too high and tell them in advance that I think that they would have an issue. I don't think that minimum guarantee.
How many airports have the balls to say that?
I think you know you're gonna get an issue down the line, so discuss it up front. Now, if the retailer wants to maintain their bid and bid high, they might have a reason, and in that case, the airport should take the money. But you get the choice of managing a bad contract for an airport, focusing on one bad contract, or trying to grow your business. And I think you need to be honest with yourself when you make your decision. And
well, I think for the future, and in any business relationship, I think we have to at least be honest. So if we are after the highest bidder with the highest MAG, I think we just need to say so. And then we know that we have to make compromises on elements like passenger quality or brand of the shopping center or the airport, because you cannot have it all and have the most excellent brand and have inflated prices due to a MAG and. So if from an airport perspective, we're honest about what we're going to get and not make a tender document where 20 departments have their say, and at the end of the day, the commercial director says, well, I like those 5 extra millions.
Yeah, it's this patent lack of transparency and honesty about some RFPs that really does beg the question, because although the airports may put up different criteria with different score ratings against each, the fact is, in 99% of the cases, it's the bottom line price that's put up, and that is a fundamentally bad thing to go with.
Well, as long as you are clear that this is what you're after, I think it's all fair.
I think you're saying that it's not the case.
That could be your position from an airport, saying, well, we make sure that we have the highest income per passenger. This is what we're after, and whoever we select as a partner, this is what you should bring to the table more than anything else. If this was the discussion, I would not have a problem with that.
Don't you think this kind of, for want of a better word, greed is killing the business in real terms, precisely because many retailers are going nowhere fast because they can't meet their requirements. They're not delivering the results they expected them because they wanted, for a whole host of different reasons, to get a footprint in an airport or a region because it's strategic rather than actually commercially viable.
And I've seen a lot of contract renegotiations from the airlines over the past few years and a few months. Sadly, it's airlines don't want to pay more, so airports have the pressure to find money elsewhere, which is creating part of the issue. It only works when the volume of passengers is increasing, because the cake is larger. Even if we all get, if each of them is getting a smaller slice of a bigger cake, we still make more money. But I think we need to solve this issue with the airlines, because otherwise we can't rebalance the margin between all the players in this industry.
Well, I think this proves that our model is broken. Because if we are so dependent as airports on growth, as we have been in the last decades, and also if we look at the business model, it hasn't changed in the last 50, 60 years. Essentially, it's still the same. And because we have been growing, our absolute figures have gone up, and so far everybody's happy. But what is not in an annual report, because there is no element that is reserved for what is called opportunity loss, this is not in an annual report. And I think
it's not in the vocabulary. Yes.
Well, accountants don't know how to write that down, and that's not their job. But it's our job. And let's say that we have a passenger penetration of 50% in an airport, and we're already quite a remarkable airport if we have that. But it also means that the opportunity is not adding more flights or more passengers towards the same products they have been showing in the last 20 years. They're not interested anymore. The opportunity is on that 50%, which is now growing, of passengers who wants to be exposed to something else. Our innovation in airports have become nothing more than new products and new services. While in the real world, outside in the last decade, it's much more about partnerships, about technology, about other types of innovations and business models. And I haven't seen a lot of that within airports, unfortunately. But this is where I think the opportunity is.
What then, Francois, do you think are the main commercial principles that need to change immediately?
Ideally, customers or passengers would pay a bit higher fare for their tickets, which I think would remove a lot of pressure for the airlines in terms of margins. That would then, in turn, remove pressure from the airports in terms of margin, and that would then, in turn, remove pressure from the travel retailers or the retailers in terms of margins. Instead of sharing smaller slices of a bigger cake, if we could get a bigger cake and maintain the size of the slices, that would be better. And I think that would be more sustainable for the whole aviation system.
Martin?
Well, I agree in the sense that we need to revisit the model, as I mentioned before. And it's not just can we make the cake bigger or can we divide the slices. I think we need to bake a layer cake. We have now a platform where we can build upon. So it's not old model versus new model. No, I think they can easily coexist. So if we have a product with beautiful shopping environments, which most of the airports do, with many of the retailers serving those, and they are profitable again, and they serve to a certain public, let's keep them and let's enhance them the way we were doing. But then for that 40, 50, 60% of the people there, let's enhance that experience as well and see if we can add different products, different services, different business models, different partnerships to those passengers, which starts with really investing in understanding what these passengers want and this great platform that we have. We have a multi-billion dollar platform at our disposal, and we could use so much more of it. I think that should be the focus. So I see it much more positive than we should not throw away the old, but we should add to the something.
I can understand why you're saying that there needs to be more effective research done, Martin, because you've got a bit of an axe to grind. But do you actually think that airport retail is responding well enough to customers' expectations, albeit they're very new expectations and behaviors? Do you think we're doing enough?
Well, the numbers show that they don't. The spend per passenger showed that they don't. So that's the quick objective answer. Not only pitching for research from our point of view, but I think when you focus at the future, you need to have a clearer understanding of what this is. And you need to experiment, because whatever we come up with in any research, it should be much more an agile approach and starting with a new brand in a certain pop-up. So why, as an airport, not provide a pop-up environment, a white label pop-up, where any brand could experiment? The airport invests in it, gets a percentage or a certain fee for an eyeball or a click, and move forward from there. And that's a very easy, low-key way to start. And you will get your votes on Instagram. So you don't even need to hire us if you don't want to. It's much more agile than just adding consultancy to the game. Yeah.
Okay, guys, one last question. If there's one commercial model or variant thereof that'll work in tomorrow's travel retail scenario, what would it be?
I believe it will be from eyeballs to trials. I think that will be the model, additionally to the models that we have that will prove profitable.
Francois?
I think it would be about equal partnership and joint ventures with both parties fully aligned on objectives and sharing the bottom line.
Last word from you, Adil.
The only business model that I think that actually will be sustainable is a model where we actually collaborate. I know it's a very old thing that we're trying to chase, but maybe COVID-19 has really put a big dent into our collaboration thinking capabilities, because we've seen things that never happened before. I do believe that airports, brands, airlines, and operators have to work very differently together, because otherwise, I do believe that the whole model will change, and I don't believe that airports and airport retailers will get that much out of it, because they have very little data. I could imagine a very crazy world where Amazon Duty Free would come up with a AliExpress fulfillment center with a Uber Go hub and Uber food, whatever. I mean, it is all there. They have all our data. We take the bus, we take the train. They know where we're going. The only ones that don't know it is the airport and the retailer, 99% of the cases. So I think if we want to be successful, we have to accept the fact that we need to collaborate. We need to enhance the collaboration, because we've seen that the only industries that manage to really grow exponentially in the last decade, in the last 3 months, in the last 3 weeks, have all been based on technology, collaboration, and innovation. And I think this is the one thing that will carve the industry, because we should not forget that the Alibabas and the likes have been looking at our industry for the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I think you've helped provide mapping out a framework for change. How doable that is, we don't know, but we know change is a necessity. Thank you very much for your time. Julian, you're most welcome. The global aviation sector has been hit very hard indeed by COVID, as we all know. What measures is Vienna International Airport taking for the time after the crisis, and what are you doing about the planned terminal expansion project?
Hi, good afternoon, Peter. It's great to be with you today. I mean, as you said, right now we are all over Europe in the midst of a probably the deepest crisis of aviation in decades, and we in Vienna, we are hit as all the others in Europe. So in August we were down minus 75% in terms of passenger numbers, and in what obviously is hitting retail even harder, the passenger mix has dramatically changed. Wherever you look across the globe, long-haul traffic has vanished, is next to zero. And looking ahead, I think we have to prepare ourselves that the next 6 months will be probably worse than what we had in the last few months. So I think it will get worse before it gets better. But right now we have to prepare for the time after. And I think the positive thing is that I hear so many people talking how much they crave for traveling again. And I think the interest of people to go abroad, to visit friends, relatives, and to see other countries and continents has not. I think it's probably even a bit stronger now after everybody stayed home essentially or most people stayed home for the last 6 months. So I'm sure there will be a huge bounce back, and I hope it starts with next summer. So
what about your plans for the future? I mean, some things are on hold, understandably. What are you actually planning in terms of direct action for the Vienna airport?
I mean, we're in the midst of a terminal refurbishment, so Terminal 2, which is predominantly it's low cost, and it's used by non-Schengen, non-Star airlines, is right now under refurbishment. So we expect this to be finished by April next year, so just in time for the summer season. But on the other hand, we obviously shifted our big Terminal 3 expansion project for the time being for a year, but we will see then in the coming months or next year how quickly demand goes up again. What we are doing right now is working very, very closely with our partners. Obviously, more or less every contract is revisited, and we are trying to adjust to this situation with I would say, a partnership approach. So we know that we have to sustain this crisis together. and then we will reap the fruits in the future.
What are the core elements of the sort of packages that you're renegotiating with your commercial partners?
No, obviously the minimum guarantee is always an issue, and we are open for discussions to reduce it or slash it completely. But I think if we are doing something to support our partners right now, obviously this has to benefit us then in the future when business is back to normal. So we're always trying to a win-win approach, and it's mainly by reducing minimum guarantee levels right now. But on the other hand, we would like to see then in the future a higher concession fee, and most of our partners are very receptive to this approach. On the other hand, I think it's right now the right time to take stock of the situation as well. And I think concepts which did not work pre-COVID, or shops or even business relationships which did not work pre-COVID, it does not make sense to maintain them in the future. So probably we're going to change some of the concepts. We're going to change some of the shops. And I think it's now the time to do it, because whatever you change in the terminal, the loss is very minimal. So I think it's now time to upgrade. It's now time to change some things to prepare ourselves for the future.
So what does this effectively mean in terms of cooperation with your commercial partners, and how can you work together to jointly find a way out of the crisis beyond what you've said already? And what sort of guiding principles can you offer the viewing audience?
I think for me the guiding principle is not to look at the short term. So that's why, as I said before, that's why we are very open to talk about minimum guarantees. So for me, it's not about this year or maybe even next year, but it's about the long term. And therefore, I think this is the guiding principle for me, and that's why our partnerships always worked extremely well. I think the difference now is that it's not just the retailers which are hit very hard, but it's the airports and the whole industry. So obviously, which puts much more pressure on everybody, and that's why it's probably a bit more difficult to discuss these things. But I'm sure that with the partners who have a long-term perspective, who have enough cash to sustain the situation, we are more than willing to help them right now on the short term to be successful in the future. And I think overall, even when the immediate crisis might go away by next summer, I think the pressure on us and the industry will remain very high.
Julian, if you could say one thing to the viewing audience about the mindset required to move forward, what would it be?
Stay optimistic. I think let's not get too depressed by today's figures. Look ahead. And I think there's a lot of reason for optimism on the medium term, because I think the underlying factors have not changed. I think our economies are still globalized. I think the desire of people to travel, to see other parts of the world, and particularly to meet people has not gone away. It's probably more than it used to be before COVID-19. So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic when you look on the medium term, and I think this has to be the spirit and the motivator for us for the future.
Adil, welcome back. Just to start with, you're fairly well renowned for being provocative, but mostly for the right reasons. The whole premise and rationale as a business for 4.13.14 is effectively wholly new. And I think it's worth briefly recapping precisely what you stand for as a business.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having us. provocation, I mean, in my world has never been bad. So I've always said that provocation nurtures focus, progress, and accelerates innovation through collaboration. And that is at the heart of what we do with 41314. We look at collaborations, we look at setting up ways of working, connecting the dots with service providers, with brands, retailers, airports, airlines, throughout all different types of industries to get people back to work safe, in a sustainable way, but also with a higher level on health and well-being at work.
So what are you principally focusing on then?
Well, we started, as you know, in the outbreak of COVID, we started with masks because there was this incredible demand for masks. We have stretched our networks to see what kind of manufacturing we had, but we found very quickly that quality was bad, quality was insecure, bad testing, fake testing of the lab results, and then on top of it, the prices, they just shoot through the air. It felt like a gold rush, and we wanted to stop that because we didn't believe that from a sustainability point of view, having all those masks that one doesn't always need to use a surgical mask. We started there. And for us, it was really about resetting a broken model because the model is broken. And we want to find a new way on how we can connect buyers in need with sellers directly to the store. So there's no middleman involved. And we've addressed multiple industries. And for us, as 41314, the most important thing is a sustainability first approach on pricing, on sourcing, and on the logistical side.
I want to get into the pricing point because this is actually a key pillar of your business. It's pivotal to what you're doing. You know, you're actually fighting against the flow, and it's really all about trying to insist that the margins are reasonable. So passengers have access to a great product at the right price, not the wrong price.
Yes. And here, Peter, we're not really focusing on the retailers, basically. What we're focusing on large asset holders that have a lot of people. So that's a starting point. But yes, the margin here also, we pre-negotiate margins. So because we talk to the manufacturers directly, we came up with the idea, basically, if we can sell it cheaper, faster, have more sustainable logistics supporting the transportation, then this is a win-win for everybody. And this is not a project that we started for margin. This was a project that we started to help out. But we see, obviously, on the pricing, that there was a lot of things that were abusive. So what we started doing, we started to apply day rates. So as soon as the factories where we work with, China, Vietnam, Malaysia, as soon as they drop the price by 2, 3, 5 cents, whatever it is, we can factor that directly in, even if the stocks have been already manufactured, which is very different because the others, they work all in lots. But for us, PPE is definitely not the thing we're focused on because we believe that there's a lot more great products out there that are very relevant and even more relevant in the future for the traveler. And we don't look at the traveler as a traveler per se in airports and airlines. We look more at the commuters because when you take the train, you take the bus, all the same principles are applying because you are with many people in small environments where you travel or in a large environment in a train station where still certain standards have to apply. And also there's shopping available there. But to be honest, I don't think that the old model of how we used to go to an airport will remain the same. And it, in fact, should not.
Let me get into some of the other projects you're directly involved with. It's the Step Out, well, it's part of the PP profile, but actually it's much broader than that too. And I know that very recently you've been included in Shashank Nigam's sort of incubator series of best products available in the market right now. And there's a whole project. Exactly, their launchpad, and that's a really step right because he's got an extraordinary network, as we know, principally amongst airlines and indeed airports, and that's a major platform for you as a business. And what exactly are you focusing on in that area?
So what we have done is, as we stand for connecting the dots in building sustainable relationships, we have mapped out our entire network. So between all the partners, we've started looking, okay, what's your network? What is your network? And if we combine those networks, how far is our reach? So looking into now network, we started working with Futurecast. And as testing has become such a big issue globally, we believe that testing shouldn't be the sexiest, the fastest, the coolest, whatever. We want it to be the best, the most accurate, and from a pricing point of view, at the best price. So we have collaborated with multiple labs globally, with biotech companies that are leading biotech. There's 800 scientists behind it. We have a medical board, we have a scientific board that's behind it. And this is how we presented basically our golden standard testing solution, where we have basically one of the few that have an end-to-end solution. So we have the manufacturing of the labs, we have the procurement of the products, and this is always directly at source. So we have basically the entire value chain that we can provide, and we can provide that in a very short period of time. And the biggest issue here is capacity. Capacity is everywhere an issue. For us, we don't have a capacity because we can build up to 50 to 80 containers a month. And we are not only buying products from China, we have Germany, the US, because we want to have the best solutions for all the parts of the world. Because in certain parts of the world, some are not accepted or are non-approved.
Is this effectively a global first for the business?
For what is out there on the market, from what we see, and collaborating with leading biotech companies in the world, the way we have approached it, I think yes, definitely.
And is the principle about margin consistent with everything else that you're doing?
Yes, because here again, we don't use middlemen. And as you know, in the biotech, in the pharmaceutical industry, in
layers and layers.
Layers and layers of middleman, more commission, and we have cut that all out because we have the manufacturers of the labs, the manufacturers of the test kits, the manufacturers of the machinery. We can supply the people that do the test. This is not done. This is medical stuff. So this is executed by medical people, and we can deploy that faster than from what we know the market is deploying at the moment.
So just how pivotal will the leverage that Shashank's platform may have for you be for your business?
Some bits are bigger, some bits are smaller, but don't forget, we have an extremely large network. Obviously, also for my background, having been a retailer, having been at Vienna Airport, having been the advisor for AOE, where we've met incredible amounts of airports and airlines, so we have that already. Here, what Simpliflying has been doing from the beginning is really to focus on how to restart. And this is how we started to collaborate with them, because we had a very clear vision that collaboration is key in order to get further, because the things that are failing is collaboration between organizations, between airports, airlines. Every day you read something new on new testing this, but the problem is that one needs to look at the entire value chain of the testing and where you test, how you test, what is the cost related to the testing. Because I remember the initial testing that came out, that was 40, 50 pounds. And it should be accessible to all. And it should be at the price point that it will stimulate travel. Because if it is another burden that is, even in many times, the test is more expensive than the ticket.
So what do you think the price point should be? I mean, we see a whole range of prices out there. None of them are actually that affordable. Where should the market be at?
Well, if the price of a test is more expensive than your ticket, then something is to start with wrong. For us, it should be accessible to everybody. We're looking at the price point depending on scale, obviously. But for example, if you compare this with the Frankfurt Airport that is doing 20,000 tests in combination with Lufthansa a day, we're targeting something below the $20.
That's extraordinarily efficient price, given what you're delivering in terms of end to end.
Exactly. And I think this is our USP, that we have really end-to-end program versus others.
If you could just map out the specific products that you've got out there in the marketplace right now and what you're looking to introduce in the coming months.
We started obviously with density, people trackers. Then we have added Four Technologies, which is a military-grade companies that have strip sensors that can count up to 300 people in a minute taking temperature. We have thermal scanners where there's also mask recognition, all the things that are relevant today. On the other side, we're also looking at multiple different platforms we're collaborating with, because the technology will change on how we travel. And as you've seen, the amount of apps that are coming out. So we're collaborating also on that with a couple of companies where we're looking at the touchless travel and completely end-to-end experience where you don't need to use anything else as your phone. So this is something that we're working with multiple companies on. And again, this is about connecting the dots, because we don't code those products, but we have a very clear vision of what is needed to create this really end-to-end solution. And it cannot be only a website from the airport, a website from the airline, plus here a website, plus. So all the gaps, we're trying basically to fill all the gaps, which are many. And this is something that is progressing quickly. And one of the examples was Circle Square with Neoma to build this non-invasive platform that one can target the traveler before being at the airport through social media campaigns. And there's a lot more in the pipeline.
That's already a good deal of traction in a very short period of time. You've only been trading for 6 months, and that's an extraordinary amount of work that you've actually accomplished. Just one final thing. If there's one thing you wanted to say to the airport and airline communities and travel retailers too at this point, what would it be?
I would start with my favorite quote. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. Meaning, airports need to move away from the mindset that they had. In my point of view, if there is no collaboration, then airports will lose out. Retailers will lose out. Brands and airlines will gain. So that is, I think, one of the most important things. And then I think also looking forward, one needs to look at its contractual model, which needs to become in the future a lot more flexible. It needs to have a more entrepreneurial spirit, from my point of view.
For sure.
And collaboration should be at the middle of everything. And then looking at what is relevant to all those travelers. And I think that health and well-being as a category will be throughout the entire customer journey, will become an important and a very integral part, because I do believe that there's a lot of concepts at airports that they're just there because the brand wants to invest the marketing activities. What is the sellout? Is it actually really working? And I think we're working on a very interesting project where we're looking at health and well-being as a holistic category that could apply for airport lounges, that could apply for airline lounges, but that could also be part of retail. Why don't we see any high quality food nutritions being sold in airports? Why is it only the bad stuff we're selling, the things that make you smell, that makes you drunk, and that stinks? Cigarettes, perfume, and liquor. We believe that there's a very big gap in the market, which we would like to discuss with airports. We're doing it already, who say, yes, it's relevant. And I think it's all about relevance, and people need to look at what is relevant to their travelers, what is relevant to their employees, because you cannot carve the future when your entire team is on furlough. So I think also there one needs to really look at how can we innovate when we don't have people around. And I think this is becoming very critical.
Some very interesting stuff there, and an extraordinary interview. And thank you very much, Adil, for your time. Wish you every success. Every success.
Thank you.
Take care.